Hey everyone. So in this video, I wanted to go over the assignments for this week, particularly the essay prompt and your outline, and then go over the PowerPoint that I put together for the reading for this week. So let's look at the assignments first, because I'm sure that's probably your number one concern. So essentially, this is an essay we're going to start writing next week. So this week you're doing the outline. So of course you need to understand the prompt. So let me just review the prompt for you. So the word stronger appears twice in August Strindberg's short play, The Stronger. First, Mrs. X uses the term to describe a self-defeating quality. And the quotation reads, "I felt that when I lifted my wings, they only dragged me down. I lay in the water with bound feet, and the stronger I strove to keep up, the deeper I worked myself down until I sank to the bottom, where you lay like a giant crab to clutch me in your claws, and there I am lying now." So here, the strength, the stronger I strove is something that's actually working against her. The stronger the stronger she's, struggles, the more she struggles, the deeper she sinks, right? And then later in the play, Mrs. X uses the term stronger to demonstrate the advantage she has over Miss Y. "Perhaps, take it all in all, I am in this moment the stronger one. You received nothing from me, but you gave me much, and now I seem like a thief, since you awakened and find I possess what is your loss." All right, so here strength is something that's positive, that is, whereas her strength in the first quotation is kind of a disadvantage, here it's an advantage. So the question you're going to be answering in this essay is, how would you characterize the strength that Mrs. X demonstrates in The Stronger? Is her strength a self-defeating quality, okay, as implied in the first quotation? In other words, in this play, is she basically digging herself deeper, okay? Or does her strength, give her the advantages implied in the second quotation? Does it, is she sort of actually building herself up and demonstrating her superiority over Miss Y? All right, so your essay, 800 words, answer the prompt with a clear thesis and close analysis of 2 to 3 quotations from the play. So none of your quotations should be more than 40 words in length. You may choose to analyze part of one of the quotations above, but you would need to shorten them because they're both over 40 words. You cannot use both of the above quotations in your essay, though. So if you wanted to sort of make the case that her quote unquote strength that she's demonstrating in the play is actually something, it's actually a weakness. It's actually something that is self-defeating and is causing her to sink deeper, then you might choose to use part of this first quotation to make that claim. Okay. You also need to incorporate in your analysis 1 to 2 quotations from Trish Carlisle's response to the play, which is the stronger actress in August Strindberg's play. To incorporate quotations from this essay, first present and explain a quotation from the play itself, then introduce a relevant quotation from Carlyle and explain how it applies to the quotation from the play. All right, in doing so, you should either disagree with or add to Carlyle's analysis of the play. So when you have your body paragraph and you present a quotation from The Stronger, then you might follow it up with something that Trish Carlisle says in her essay that's relevant to the quotation, and then use that to springboard off into your own analysis, where you're, again, you're either adding to what Carlyle says, or you're disagreeing with what Carlyle says. Okay, so so the outline, so I kind of go through the outline format, but what I like to do is just look at the template and just show you the template. This template is there in a Microsoft Word document and a PDF. So if you wanted to work directly with the Microsoft Word document, you could do that. I'm very specific with how I want you to do the outline. So this isn't just make an outline. This is follow my outline template to get full credit. Because there are specific things that I want you to figure out and share with me in this assignment before you start writing the essay. So number one, what is your working thesis? What is your answer to the prompt? How would you characterize her strength? Is it something defeating, or is it something that gives her an advantage over Miss Y? Okay. It should be specific, interpretive, unified statement of 1 to 3 sentences. The thesis needs to explain why you are taking this position. It should not be a question or give a list of possible reasons. All right. So I don't want the thesis to basically just explain what your examples are going to be, or just give a list of, Mrs. X's strength is self-defeating because of X, Y, Z. I want it to be a unified statement that you could then, that basically serves as sort of an umbrella statement for the various points that you want to make in your essay. So in the outline, so number 2, what you're basically doing with numbers 2, 3, and 4 are giving your quotation. So, so this should be your actual quotation from the play that you plan to use with the correct in-text citation. Okay. I know it says cite line numbers as demonstrated above. That's actually referring to the prompt. Okay, so the prompt demonstrates how to cite the line numbers. After the quotation, what is your claim going to be? Okay, so what point are you trying to make with this quotation? What does this quotation reveal about the prompt in your thesis? It should be something interpretive, all right? So I don't want context here. I don't want summary. Explain why this quotation is significant to your interpretation. And then B is only required for 1 body paragraph. Okay, so you don't have to do B for 2, 3, and 4. If you do it for 2, then you don't have to do it again. So this would be a quotation from Carlyle's essay that is relevant to this quotation, followed by the correct in-text citation. All right, and I give you an example of that citation here. And then for your second quotation, so number 3 is the second quotation. Same deal for 3A. What's the claim going to be? It should be something different than your claim for the first quotation. It should also, again, be something interpretive. And B, again, is only required for 1 body paragraph. All right, so so you can choose, maybe you don't have B for number 2, but you have B for maybe you have B for 2 and 3. That's also fine. Number 4 is optional, all right, because you don't need a third quotation for this essay. You can do, you should be able to write this essay and, by focusing on 2 quotations and completing the word length. So the third quotation is optional, but if you feel like you want the third quotation, there's a good one that you really want to use, then complete 4. But again, this is optional. And what you may also do is you may decide, I'm going to go ahead and choose a third quotation for my outline. But when I actually write the essay, depending on how the essay is going, I may do that paragraph, or I may not do that paragraph. So if like you're already getting close to the conclusion and you're over 800 words, then you may not need that third body paragraph. And then works cited at the end, so there should be 2 citations. One for the Trish Carlisle, so Carlisle, Trish, the title of her essay, book information with the page numbers at the end, and then the second one will be Strindberg, as C comes before S. So so you fill in this information, and if you're using the template, this is very easy. Though I've noticed in assignments that people are not using the templates or the examples that I'm giving for works cited entries. People are doing it, trying to fit out on their own, which is okay if you know how to do it. But I'm coming across a lot of examples where people are not doing it correctly. Don't use a citation generator. All right. They seem helpful, and in some situations, they may be helpful if you really know how to use them correctly. But don't use it for this class. I'm trying to give you. I'm telling you what it should look like. I'm giving you the templates. I'm giving you the examples. Just follow the examples, and it's just as easy as putting all the information in a citation generator to just go in and fill in the information right here, and then it's correct. But citation generators, again, are often not correct, to be honest. Because it all depends on the generator and set to and how you enter the information, and it's use this. It's easy. This is something that I'm trying to make easy for you. Okay, so that's the outline. So that's what is due on Sunday. All right. Along with it, you do have a discussion question due this week too. You do not have a comprehension assignment. Okay, so you don't have a comprehension quiz or any modules that are due this week. All right. With the comprehension quiz assignment, I just decided that the outline was enough of a comprehension assignment. That if you are able to do this outline, then you adequately understand the reading. So I didn't feel like the comprehension assignment was necessary, and I'd rather you spend more time on this. Okay, so let's look at because I put together a PowerPoint that I'll be posting on Chapter 6, the third part of Chapter 6, which is on writing about plays. And let me just say, with these PowerPoints, there's definitely sections of the reading that I didn't put in the PowerPoint just because I felt like it was redundant with other sections. So like each section sort of talks about theme and, for example, or characters and protagonists, antagonists, and yes, some of it is explained in a way that's more specific to plays and more specific to the play The Stronger. So, you should definitely go back and read those sections because it's going to give you some good ideas for what to say about the play The Stronger. But there, in terms of the nuts and bolts, I felt like it was consistent with what, we had learned about, generally about characters, theme, etc., in the other sections. So, so a few quotations, with these PowerPoints, I like to, just sort of pick out some quotation and the editor's words, to capture what they're trying to say. So no matter what the author of the script intended, theater is a collaborative art. All of the key figures involved in a play's production are active interpreters of the play, and that they influence the audience's understanding and experience of it. Therefore, you can develop good ideas when you read a play if you imagine yourself directing a production of it. More specifically, think what you would say to the actors as you guide them through their parts. And this part of what is unique about plays is, even more more so than other, um, uh, other forms of literature, they're really kind of unfinished products. Okay, in the same way that if you read a movie script, a movie script is sort of an unfinished product. I mean, if you read the movie script of, say, the movie Snakes on a Plane, which would be an interesting movie script to read, and then compare it to the movie Snakes on a Plane. Some of you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Look it up, actual movie. But the movie is sort of the finished product of that script, right? And in the same way, a performance of The Stronger is sort of the finished product of that script. Okay. One thing that's different, when it comes to movies and scripts, a lot of times a movie script is only made into a movie once. So there's sort of the definitive movie, Snakes on a Plane. Somebody could try to do a remake at some point, and it would be completely ridiculous, but they could, and they could use the exact same script, but usually that's not how it works with movies. Most movies are only made once, whereas a play, the script is then performed, depending on how popular or influential the play is, it can be performed, thousands of times, or in the case of Shakespeare, it's probably been performed hundreds of thousands of times. But each performance is its own interpretation. All right. And so I posted some videos of a performance of The Stronger, and that performance is an interpretation of the play. And so when you're reading it, it's helpful to think about, how would you interpret it? Okay, how would you imagine this on a stage? How would you imagine actors portraying these parts? If you were a director, how would you sort of visualize what's happening here? So the play itself, The Stronger, it's a short one-scene play. It takes place in a ladies' cafe. It has only 3 parts. Mrs. X, an actress who is married, who has all the speaking parts. Miss Y, an actress, unmarried, who listens and reacts to Mrs. X but never speaks. And then a waitress who enters to bring Mrs. X a cup of chocolate, never speaks and never returns. A few things that's interesting. One, the location, why a ladies' cafe, and this is, this play was written, late 1900s. Late 1800s, late 19th century. The play is also Swedish. Okay, so so it takes place in Europe, and so there's sort of a different time, different locale, different sort of cultural setting than modern day Greenville, but you sort of understand. Okay, well, this is a ladies' cafe. This is a place where sort of like ladies, where women go and sit and socialize, but it's a space specifically for women, which is interesting. The namelessness of the characters, Mrs. X, Miss Y, a waitress, Mrs. X and Miss Y are basically identified based on whether or not they're married. So Mrs. X, the MRS, traditionally is a sign that somebody's married. MS, this actually should be MISS, because the MS is, a more recent abbreviation that's sort of marriage neutral, so to speak. But the MRS and the MISS are there to sort of signify like who's married and who's not. So that's kind of how they're defined here at the beginning. The waitress is defined by her job, and which in this play is bringing Mrs. X a cup of chocolate. Mrs. Y is actually given a name, in the play Amelie, and but is always referred to in the stage directions as Miss Y, interestingly. So the one-sided conversation mostly centers on Mrs. X's husband, Bob, and Mrs. X gradually reveals that she suspects that he and Miss Y had an affair. Mrs. X also reveals that she has adopted Miss Y's dress, tastes, and habits, presumably to make Mrs. X more appealing to her husband. I mean, this is essentially the thrust of the conversation. Again, Miss Y does not speak the entire time. Mrs. X sort of ends the play, in this sort of triumphal way where she is leaving to go back to her husband, and she's going back to her husband who Miss Y can't have. But as implied by the prompt, there's sort of this ambiguity about, like what is the nature of Mrs. X's strength? I mean, obviously she's very vocal. She's very sort of passionate. She's unlike Miss Y, she speaks her mind. She says what's on her mind. She says it with confidence. But in doing so, is she really just kind of digging herself deeper? Are all these characteristics sort of self-defeating for Mrs. X? Or is it something, do you feel like by the end that she's kind of really has sort of triumphed over Miss Y and set her straight? Something else, despite its realistic look and feel, The Stronger is experimental in design. And what I mean by that is I don't think we're supposed to assume there's some psychological or physiological reason for Miss Y to not speak. It doesn't seem particularly realistic that throughout this entire conversation, Miss Y would just sit there. And of course, she does react. The stage directions give us some of her reactions, but it's in a way this play is sort of a dramatic experiment, and having and sort of presenting a one-sided conversation, so that's when I say this, her silence is contrived. It's there's artistic license here. It's done for its artistic dramatic effect, not because it's how somebody would probably behave in the situation. So the one-sided conversation is intended to reveal themes, conflicts, and character dynamics that might otherwise be overlooked. Okay. And one of those is just to sharpen this distinction between Mrs. X and Miss Y, right? And Mrs. X is, being able to vocalize her feelings, and Mrs. Y's silence. Her Mrs. Y's sort of refusal to engage. Okay. Stage directions and setting. So this is something that is sort of unique to plays, so a few quotations from the editor. So, through a slight physical movement, performers can indicate important developments in their characters' thoughts. All right. So, for example, they give Miss Y's startled gesture, shriek of laughter. The editors also say you can learn much about a play's characters by how they accommodate themselves or fail to accommodate themselves to their settings. Okay. We talk about the Ladies' Cafe as a female space. The time being Christmas Eve is particularly relevant. They talk about movement within the setting, Mrs. X's movement from one table to the other. So So part of the point here is that, when we think about the setting in a play, it's always this organic, always has this organic quality with the actual characters and action within the play. So the setting is a place, where the actors perform, like in a way it's the stage. It is literally the stage of the performance, and the context of the performance. And and part of what's sort of interesting about understanding the setting is how the characters interact with it, how the stage directions sort of, kind of guide the characters' behavior and the characters' interaction with the setting and the stage itself. Okay, and then so the last part of the PowerPoint is I wanted to say a few things about the Trish Carlisle essay that you are also working into your own essay on, The Stronger. Okay, and a few quotations that I think are relevant. Well, one thing let me say about her essay is that, if you didn't pick up on this, the assignment was clearly sort of directed to, or in the assignment, she was directed to speak in second person, almost as if she's giving, giving advice for how to perform the play, right? So it's her essay is not a traditional essay assignment, but she makes a number of observations that I think are interesting, relevant. So. There's little reason to believe that Mrs. X is an accurate judge of the two women's situations. Perhaps she is telling herself that she is stronger because she simply needs to believe that she is. Okay? So is her strength, itself a performance, right? Is she performing or pretending to be strong in order to convince herself that she is? But as we try to figure out how Strindberg is defining the term stronger, we should notice one fact that we are indeed given. Each of these women is an actress, right? So, and this is not an irrelevant detail, okay? And so the fact that they are both actresses, the fact that, perhaps that, that context helps us understand Mrs. X a little bit more, in the sense that, is she just pretending or performing the person that she wants to be, and then you sort of think back to some of the details about how in many ways she sort of, began performing the character of Miss Y for her husband, adopting Mrs. Y's taste, the chocolate, is kind of symbolic of that. Adopting some of her dress, etc. Because we do know that these women are professional actresses, and because Strindberg gives us several hints that they are performing right there at the cafe, we should be encouraged to think that he's raising the question of which is the stronger actress, who is giving the stronger performance in this play. And thinking of this in terms of, within the text of the play, who do we interpret as being sort of this, giving the sort of the stronger performance? Is Mrs. X's performance of projecting strength, is that more convincing than Mrs. X's performance, or sorry, Miss Y's performance of silence, or sort of silent strength? But if Strindberg does have in mind the women's careers and behavior as actresses, then he seems to be defining stronger as more able to convey one's version of reality. All right. This is the hinge that Carlisle's essay is on. That this is how she sort of defining stronger. This is how she would characterizing the strength of Mrs. X. I don't know if this is. This is not a sort of definitive definition of strength. If your essay is going in a similar route, I want you to add to this idea. So I don't want you to just use this idea within your own thesis. But it is an interesting one, you know, to what extent is someone's strength? Because basically what we're talking about, you know, is honesty on a certain level, you know, that she's able to express her version of reality. But Carlyle seems to also imply that this is also about sort of taking like her version of reality and making it true for other people, so that her version of reality also becomes true for Miss Y. And you know, in a way, it's almost kind of imposing her version of reality, or convincing Miss Y, persuading Miss Y that her version of reality is the correct version of reality. So this is an interesting idea that that Carlyle introduces. And Carlyle's she's a student writer, just like you, presumably. And then so actually I wanted to end on a few thought-provoking quotations from August Strindberg that you can't use in your essay. So I don't want you to use these in your essay, but they might give you ideas that you might explore in your essay. Okay. So the first two come from something he wrote, an essay he wrote called The Battle of the Brains. The first quotation, though no expert or authority, my experiments have led me to conclude that suggestion is only the stronger brain struggle with and victory over a weaker mind, and that this procedure is applied unconsciously in daily life. So in what sense is the power of suggestion present in the play The Stronger? You know, here we're sort of again getting into this idea of persuasion. You know, who seems to have the power of suggestion over the other? Does Mrs. X seem to have the power of suggestion to influence Mrs. Y's behavior, or vice versa? And the second quotation, the actor hypnotizes his wide-awake audience, forcing it to applaud, weep, and laugh. The orator can make the masses believe any kind of nonsense if he is a gifted speaker, has a command of rhetoric. So again, this kind of this idea of strength as you know, in terms of the ability to persuade, the ability to make somebody to suggest something and make somebody believe in what you want them to believe. Okay. And then the last one, which is from an essay he wrote called Psychic Murder. All attempts to make people honest have founded on the hard and fast law that one must hide one's intentions. Being frank is the equivalent to letting oneself be fooled, throwing down one's weapons, surrendering unconditionally. Okay, so the quotation implies that, you know, that being too honest, you know, may actually be self-defeating. You know, so you know, it's setting yourself up to be defeated. You know, it's throwing down one's weapons. It's you know, honesty as surrender, as opposed to, you know, I mean, if you think about, for example, Miss Y, you know, she does not reveal anything. The other quotations sort of imply that, you know, persuasion and suggestion does not necessarily mean that one is being honest with somebody. The orator can make the masses believe any kind of nonsense. So, so these are some quotations that I dug up from Strindberg that I just thought were interesting. Again, you know, they might sort of give you some ideas for how to approach writing the essay and writing about this play. I don't want you to actually use these quotations in your play, or sorry, in your essay. But, you know, they might inspire something. Okay, so so that's it for this video, and I'll be posting the PowerPoint, and the assignment links are already posted. All right, thank you. Have a great rest of your week.